In this Android episode, what we're going to do is get into building the actual TechPub application. This is going to be the application that we're going to build for the remainder of the Android series here on TechPub. The TechPub Android application will allow users to download and view TechPub videos right here on their Android device. Before we get into writing any code, let's take a few moments to look at some screen mockups that I've already developed to see how and what we're going to be developing. What we see here in front of us is the TechPub splash screen. The splash screen itself will be presented when the user taps on the TechPub application icon from the application launcher menu. What we have here is a TechPub logo, and the TechPub logo will actually come down from the top here in an animation. So it'll kind of fade in and slide towards the middle of the screen. This will take under a second to do, and then it'll stay on the screen for a couple of seconds, and then we will now be brought to the next page. This is the TechPub application homepage. We're presented here with the categories of videos that the user can watch. We see here that we have the free series Coder to Developer, the free series Concepts, and then we have some other series information such as Android, ASP.NET, Ajax, etc. This is important. We have a list view here which we're going to be building. Each list view is composed of individual rows. So this row is just going to be generated each time with just different content, and we're going to kind of loop through that and create that. We also have a couple other items here, such as a text view, which gives us our nice gray background and some productions text, and we also have the TechPub logo itself. After the user selects a category that they'd like to view, we're going to take them to the next page. The next page in the application that they're going to see is the categories page itself, which will list the videos associated with that category. We'll have the TechPub logo. We'll have the concepts up in the right hand corner of the screen, so we know that we're in the concepts category. Then we're going to present some details about the concepts category, kind of give the information. This is the same information that you'll see on the website. Then we're going to break it down into each individual episode. This is where we're going to stop with building the initial UI at this point in time, but in the future what will happen is we'll click on one of these videos and we'll be presented with a couple more options. Perhaps we want to allow the user to download the video to the SD card, or we want to allow the user to watch the video if they've already downloaded the video. But at this point in time, these are the three screens that we're going to try to tackle here in the next couple of episodes. So let's go back and take a look at the Eclipse IDE. So since we've opened the Eclipse IDE, I've already opened up a TechPub application. And the TechPub application is just file new application, and then we just have a couple files in here. It's inside of the com.techpub player package. We have the main activity, and the main activity just does the normal stuff here, sets the content view, which is the main layout that we would like to use. And inside of that main layout we have a main XML, and we don't have anything fancy in here. We just have a text view that's going to say hello. If we run this application now, let's double click it here, we should see the app starting up. It's starting, and we look at the emulator, and there now we have TechPub Hello. I'm not going to work on the splash page because the main functionality that we're interested in initially is building the home page itself. And the home page looks just like this. So we're interested in putting this icon here, making the text view, implementing the list view, and populating the list view with some information. That's what we're going to handle first. And then as we move on, we'll come back and we'll build in the splash page. Let's hop back and take a look at the code here. We have the main activity. In order to build a list view, we actually need to define that in the XML file itself. So what we have here is we have a linear layout with the text view. Let's go ahead and change that. And I have some files already built here. So I'm going to open the main file here that I have, and I'm just going to paste the contents in, and we'll discuss this in a second. What we're seeing here is we're seeing a couple of warnings that there's multiple annotations found, etc. Sometimes this is solved by opening and closing the document, such we now see we don't have the yellow lines go away. It's just kind of a problem that many different people have encountered with Eclipse. We have the error on this located line right here, and what this error says, if you put your mouse over it it says that we don't have a resource found that matches the name text color, and for the separator text and the separator background color, and that is this piece right here. So we have the background and that piece. So what we need to do in order to solve this error first is come in and add something inside of our values. We need to add a colors.xml file. If we add the colors.xml file, we can do it through clicking on the values and then saying on the top here, we're going to want to open the wizard to create a new Android XML file. Let's click that, and then what we want to call it is colors.xml, and it's a values file, and we're just going to click finish. So it now drops a colors file in here. We have the resource editor here, and we can click add, and we can select color, dimension, drawable, different types of arrays, different types of values, or we can come down and look down at the bottom and look at the colors XML, the raw data itself. We're going to go ahead and use the raw data itself, and I've already typed up all that information that we're going to need. So we're just going to use the colors that we need right now. So I'm going to put this in the middle of the resources, put in some tabs here, and so now we have a couple of colors that are defined. This allows us to define colors in an external resource. This also helps us with theming down the line. If we decide that we would like to create a new theme for our TechPub application, we can now reference the colors in the colors file themselves. We don't have to go back through all the XML files and change them all over the place. We can kind of create different themes and styles and base it upon colors. Hopping back into the main XML file, we now see that the error is gone. This is because Eclipse has built the project in the background. We can change that by going to Project, Build Automatically. We can turn that building off automatically. So as soon as we edit the file and save something, Eclipse will rebuild it. Now this could be problematic for you if you have a very large project, but for these simple small applications it's pretty nice to have, and the errors will be reported in the error window. I have my error window minified, but I can click this icon here to restore it, and it will present us with a bunch of different options. These options that we're going to look for at problems are located in the problems tab. Looks like the problems we don't have any at this point in time. However, let's create one to see what it looks like. Let's go back to the main activity. Let's just type some stuff here, and we'll save it. And now immediately we see we have a couple of errors in our error window saying that something cannot be resolved, syntax errors all over the place. If we get rid of this, press save, our errors go away. So let's go back to the main XML file and we'll take a look at what's going on here. We're going to pull up the screenshot so we can kind of point to the locations of the XML and what it actually renders. There's a couple of things here. We have the image view for the TechPub image. We have some separator text, which is called productions. And then we have a selection, which isn't visible because there's nothing in there right now. And then we have the list view. And the list view is going to be highlighted in yellow here. And it is right here. So we have 4 different controls, as you could call them, or 4 different views inside of our page here. The header image is going to set its background as the TechPub logo header. That's inside of our drawable folder here. The drawables will look inside of the MDPI, LDPI, HDPI. This all depends on the medium, low, or high density devices in which you have. I have everything inside of an MDPI. If Eclipse, Android, etc. cannot find the drawable that it needs, it will look inside of the folders and find the one that it needs. So since I have everything in MDPI, it'll find it all in MDPI. This is for medium density devices. If I were to develop for 2.0 devices and above, which we will need to do, eventually we will need to create some higher resolution images and drop those into the HDPI, and then all of the images will look nice and crisp on the nice fancy Droids and Nexus 1s, while the regular G1s will also look well with the MDPIs. So it's different types of resolutions that we're going to be working with. However, we just start developing with MDPI as it's kind of the basis where all the apps originally started. Previous to Android 1.6, and we all had just a drawable folder where all images went in. As soon as the high density devices and the low density devices came out, we started having to create different images, etc. The layouts will handle positioning the the files accordingly depending upon the device itself. So the layout engine works very well. We don't have to worry about, depending if you're a 2.0, I want to make sure that it's 10 pixels more to the left or to the right. The Android layout engine will handle that for us. So if we take a look at what we're trying to find here is the TechPub logo header, we can find that TechPub logo header is right there. We're going to add about 5 pixels of padding around everything. Otherwise, we would see this would be real close up to the top and bottom, and it wouldn't really look that well. And then we're going to tell it that we would like it to align left with the gravity. The next is the separator text, which is right here. We're doing the same type of thing. We're just giving a little bit of padding. And then we're telling it its background color is this gray color, and the text color is going to be white. Now these are inside of the colors. If we go back to the colors.xml file, we'll see separator BG color and separator text color. Those are located right here. So we kind of have a gray color with the hexadecimal 5.2 and a white color with the hexadecimal Fs. Returning back to the main XML file, we'll see that we have a text view called selection. Now there's nothing that's in here right now, but this is here for the future. If we would like to present some information to display to the user that we have selected something or something's happening, we could use this as more along the lines of a status window. We might remove this in the future, but I'm just placing it here just in case we do need it. And then we have the list. The list itself is the list of all these items. And all we're telling it to do is to just present the list information there. Nothing fancy at all. If we take a step back and look at the productions, let's also notice that the productions value, text of productions, is not stored directly in the text objects. We're actually referencing a string resource called header separator. Let's go look at the strings. And we have a couple of different strings that are already set up in here that I've written here for this episode. And we have the header separator, which is right here, that we're going to be using. So we could change that in our code, or we could change it here in the XML file, and it would change what's going to show up on the screen right here. So now that we have our XML file laid out, what we need to do is be able to put some data into that XML file. So if we go into the main activity is loading up the main.xml file through the set content view. Set content view sets the view for the current activities, telling it which view that you would like your activity to use. In this case, we're just inheriting from a general activity. Nothing fancy about it. We can pretty much do anything we would like at this point in time. We can work with text boxes, buttons, etc., web browsers. But since we're going to be working with lists, Android provides us with another activity called the list activity. And the list activity, if we inherit from list activity, we'll see we have some red squiggly lines. We have a couple of options. We can put our mouse over list activity and import it. So we can do that. Or you can hit Control-Shift-M and that will also import it. So it adds an import up top here. And we see list activity. And now we have bundled everything up. If we start this at this point in time, Android is going to try to start the app and then it's going to crash because we need to actually set the list content view itself to say this is the list that you're going to use. We already have that code written, so let's fire that up and grab that code. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste over this right now. I have a couple of errors here. We'll get to these in a second. So what I have now is I've extended the list activity as I've shown before. I'm creating just a bunch of string values here. These are the values I just want to kind of throw into the list itself just to test to make sure my list is working correctly. And I'm doing the same thing that I've done before down here, setting the content views. However, there's another line of code here calling set the list adapter. To populate a list view, we need to set some type of adapter. These adapters are how we get the data into the list itself. So there's a couple of built-in adapters, a couple of simple adapters out there. However, these are just built for basic use, such as just displaying text in a list. Nothing really fancy. As soon as you get into advanced examples such as this one where we are displaying a image with a 1 pixel border and a text with coder to developer, and then we have this darker text with the description with an ellipse at the end. As soon as we get these complex scenarios of where we need to change the way each view is going to look depending upon the state of an object, we need to build a custom adapter. Now luckily these custom adapters are real easy to build, and we have put one as a subclass inside of the main activity here. So down below what we have is a category adapter. This category adapter extends array adapter, which is built into the Android framework. And what we're telling it is we're going to have an array adapter of type string. Now we have a couple of errors here because what we need to do is we need to tell the array adapter or category adapter now what the current context is, which is running in this activity. So it's going to run in this activity. We want to tell it what its row is and the basic label for it, and then the data that it's going to load into and pretty much loop through to create the adapter. And we don't have these built yet, the category row and the label, but we'll get to that in a second. We also need to override and do something. Each time we would like to create a row, the getView method is going to get called with the position of where it's at inside of the categories. So where is it at inside of categories? And then it also needs to know if it's a converting a view, if it's the parent group, etc. Now inside of here we're going to do a few other things, and we're going to inflate the view, and we're going to get some values, and we're going to set some text. So let's get to that in a second. However, let's add the category row. So this is inside of our layouts that you see here. Let's go down to layout, and we need to add another XML file. So let's go into layout. We'll click the button up top here to open an XML file. We want a layout, and we're going to call it category_row .xml. At the layout, and let's click finish. And there is our category row. Now this is the basic designer that we're given from Eclipse to view what we're working on. We can play with the designer, kind of drag some stuff over back and forth. I don't prefer to work in the designer because the designer is still subpar in my opinion. I prefer to work directly in the XML. If you're familiar with working with XAML in WPF or Silverlight, anything of that nature from the .NET world, then this might be a little more familiar with you because we are declaring the layout again with XML. And that's the way that I prefer to do it. So let's open up the category row. I've already written that code for us. We get a couple of errors here, and we'll just reopen this. There we go, to get that yellow lines to go away. Couple of errors located throughout the project here. You'll see the errors on the left hand side. You'll also see them on the right hand side as well. What you can do is put your mouse over each side of them, and it'll kind of give you the information. So we don't have a resource for a color background for a category, and we don't have a resource for the category name color. So both these colors are missing from our colors XML file. Let's fix those errors by opening up the colors XML. And we'll come back and copy our colors over for our categories. So we have a color for the background color is just going to be white, and the category name is going to be white as well. We can now see that our errors have gone away. We don't see them in the gutter over here or the gutter over here. So what this actually is the category row itself. The category row is just this piece right here. This is one row, is all of this code here. Now what we would like to do is we can lay out things in a couple different ways. If we take a look back at the main XML, we'll see that we're using a linear layout. A linear layout will lay things out in a linear fashion. As soon as you start stacking things, they'll stack them on top of each other. Here we're going to stack an image view, and then below it we're going to have a text view, and then below that we're going to have a selection text view, and then below that we're going to have a list. So it kind of just stacks everything for you. It's very linear. Now in the category row, we want to do something a little bit different. We want to have an end result that looks just like this. So I'd like to have a image, which is here, and then to the right of it up top I would like to have a title, and then I'd like to have the details below it. Notice that doesn't matter what order the XML is laid out here, because certain properties inside of the XML are determining how things are going to be laid out within the screen. So we're highlighting in green here, we can see that the details line is going to be laid out to the right side of the icon. The ID label is going to be to the right side of the icon. And then what we're also going to see is we have one here for the details line that says that the layout is going to be below the ID label. So if we think about this, here's the label up top, and then what we have is the description below. So the label is going to be above the description, and those are set out through the relative layout. And that's all this file really contains. Now there's a couple of other things that we should really get into and note here. Each one of these images that come from an external resource, such as HTTP resource, etc., we're not sure if it's going to have a border on it, if it's not, or if it will. So to make the UI more consistent, what we do is we provide a 1 pixel border, and then what we say is we're going to set the background color of the image itself to white. So what this does is it gives kind of it forces the canvas around the image view to be 1 pixel bigger. We'll set the background to white. So now we're simulating a 1 pixel white border around this. And then from the next important thing to note is we have the description here, and all of the descriptions are ending in ellipses here, which means that this text is a lot bigger than will fit in this current section. Scrolling down and looking at this here, we have a couple of options here that we have set. We have said that we would like to have the single line be true, and then we'd like to say that we're going to have an ellipse at the end. If we didn't have the single line true, this could take up many different lines. Each row could be larger than the next row, which would kind of make the UI look a little bit off. So we want to make sure that we're only displaying the information that we have. There's a couple of other options inside of ellipse, such as marquee, and the marquee option says that when we have this in here, if the text is larger than what fits in there, just let the text scroll off the screen. But as soon as the user highlights that row, within a second, the marquee will start, and this text here will start scrolling over to the left, and so you can see everything within there. However, that's not what we're trying to go with here. We simply want to go with an example where we have ellipses at the end to let the end user know that, hey, there's more information here. Select this row item to view some more information. So now we have this. Let's go back to the main activity. But we're only going to be loading in some information here. So lorem ipsum dolor foo bar fizbin, etc. Looking at the category row, we also have an image in here. We have some details. We have a label. What we're going to do now is we're just going to set the label text, and the label text is going to say foo bar fizbin, etc. And if we were to start this application up, we'll say Android. Let's go look at our app. It's going to shut down the app by default, and then it's going to reinstall and then restart our activity. And there we go. Now we have our TechPub basic homepage up. Notice that every single one of these have a detail line that says simple application. It shows how t ... and it also has an image here. This is the default image that I've supplied, and this is the default text that I've supplied for the details line. Let's go back and take a look at the category row to see where that came from. For the image itself, which is this image right here, right here, right here down the line, I've set the source to be the category of TechPub. If we look inside of our drawable folder, you see category TechPub right here, and if we double click it, you'll see that it's just a little image here that is what we see. Now there's no white background on it here, which is why we have the 1 pixel of white background and the background color of white. Also on the screen, we have many different details here. However, in our emulator, we have the same text over and over. This is because the details line, I've hard-coded the text just to say simple application. It shows how to use relative layout. Now when I'm loading this up in the real example, when we start getting into using real objects inside of the application, we're going to take that information and load it in. However, if no information gets loaded in, the application is going to use what's defaulted inside of these values here. So I could put this inside of a string resource, I could put it inside of somewhere else, or I could just leave it completely empty. However, I wanted to demonstrate what would happen if I did have some text in there and didn't replace it. So now we can drag this around, we can select simple items here. So what would we maybe want to do? We'd want to select a item here. We want to show something to the end user. A lot of times when something is selected, we want to show a quick little message to the end user that we're going to perform some work. We can do that inside of here very easily. So let's go to the main activity. And what we have is, because we're implementing list activity, we can override a method called onListItemClick. It gives us the view, the position, all the way down the line. But what we want to do here is just want to let the user know which item they clicked on just for the fun of it. So we have something called a toast. And what we can do is we can tell Android that we would like to have some information show up to the screen. So the context that we're going to use is main activity .this, and the text we'd like to show is going to be the category, and then we're going to say the position, and this position is coming from the parameter that's passed into us, and the duration is going to be, say, toast.short link short. And now we've built an actual toast, and then we're going to say show. So this is going to give us a little pop-up information, like kind of a quick little pop-up. It's going to stay there for a couple of seconds, and then it's going to go away. So let's go ahead and rebuild. Now this is something you'd normally do for this application that we're building, but it's just kind of to demonstrate how you can use a toast to display information to the end user. We click this one, we'll see that we have lorem, ipsum, let's go to bar, it'll show up next, and then fizzbin. And we can let's click around real fast all over the place to demonstrate another feature. I'm going to start clicking, I'm going to keep clicking, and I'm clicking all over the place. Notice how the notifications, the toasts, keep showing up over and over. They queue up in line, so as you start clicking them, if multiple things are happening, you can continue to update the user and just kind of let them know, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened. There's better ways to do this through progress and notification dialogues. However, this is a simple, quick way to present information to the user, letting them know, thank you, your information has been submitted, anything of that nature. So the next step is to get the main activity to start working with some real objects. So what we're going to need to do is, instead of using a list of string categories, what we need to do is actually build a couple of objects that more along the lines represent what a category looks like. So let's think about this for a second. A category is going to have a image resource, it's going to have a name, and it's going to have a description. It's probably going to have an ID associated with it as well. And it's also probably going to have a list of videos that are associated with it. And these videos are going to have the video name and the video description and probably a video ID as well. So let's go and create these. What we need to do is create a new package inside of our source folder. So what we can do is right click new and go to new package. I'm going to say com.techpub.models. So this is going to be the model that we work with. Hit finish. Now we have a new model in here. So we're going to model up the categories at this time. So let's go ahead and call it category info. We're going to create a new class. Right click on com.techpub.models. Click new class. And this is a new class wizard here. And what I can say is I can just give it the name of category info. And then what's a superclass? It's going to inherit from Java's base object. I'm not really going to do anything different, that's fine. And now I have a category info object. I also am going to need a video info object. So I go new class, video info, I'm going to click finish, and now we have a new video info object as well. Let's go ahead and fill these objects up real quick. So we have category info. Just going to cut and paste. And then we have video info. Take a look at category info. What we have here are a couple of items. We have the ID, we have a category name, we have a list of videos that are associated with the category, the description, and the image resource ID for the category. Please note that this is for getting the UI up and running. When we actually connect up to the TechPub API or the website to get the information from TechPub, we're not going to be storing image resources inside of a drawable folder. We're going to be retrieving these images from some web server. We'll be retrieving the stream. We'll be building those objects on the fly. But to build the UI, we're just going to actually use some hard-coded images at this time. Now below we just have a bunch of getters and setters, so get ID, set ID, kind of basic Java stuff. And then we have the category info. So we have a int ID, we have a category name that we're going to build, and then we're just going to set up a new list, an array list of video info objects. We see that the video info is a list of video info, and we have to declare it as such. Videos equals new array list of video info. If we take a look at video info, we'll see that we just have a couple of values here, the video URL, the name, and the description. And we take in some information on the constructor here to set those values, and then all of our basic getters and setters are all down in this location here. So everything's all great and dandy. However, what we will need a way to do something, we'll need a way to get some data into these objects. What we'll probably do is create a mock repository. But before we do that, let's open up the main activity, have how it's going to look after we use the video info objects. Notice that we are missing a couple of items here. And I'm going to delete the intents here because we're not going to be working with those just yet. I'm missing a mock category repository that we need to write to build our list of category info objects. Again, so the first thing that happens is we're going to create the activity itself. It's a list activity. We're going to populate our list of activities, and we're going to use the same category adapter we used before. The only difference this time is instead of inheriting from an array adapter of strings, it's going to inherit from an array adapter of categories. And then we're going to do a little bit more work down in here, which I will explain in a moment. So if we go back up and we see that we're missing the mock category repository, we need to add a new package here for that. So let's right click here, new package, com.techpub.storage. So that's where we're maybe going to get some data. Right click new, class, and we had called this mock category repository. Select finish. Now I've already written all this code here, and it's a lot of ceremony to set up, so there's no point in retyping it. And all we do here is we set up a bunch of different objects. The category repository has one method. It returns a list of category infos. It's called getCategories. And all we do is we build up a list of categories here. So we're building the coder one here, we're building the concepts, the Android, all the way down the line. Each episode is given its own example org URL, the name, the description. Each category is giving its own name, its own ID, its own image to use to display to the screen, then it's added to the list of categories. We continue with the same thing all the way down the line and kind of build it up. These bottom few here do not have any videos associated with them, and we'll get into that in the future to see what it looks like when we don't provide any videos to the next video activity. If we go back to main activity, we see that our error is now gone with the category repository. We're still having error up top in our imports, and that has to do with a package that doesn't exist yet for some intents that we will write probably in the next episode. Now once we create our array adapter, what we're going to do is we're going to have a list of categories. This list of categories is a list of category info objects, which is located up top here. So these are the categories that we're going to be working with. And the category adapter says each time that I need to build, each time I encounter a new category info, what do I need to do with it? And so what we say is we override the get view. And inside of get view, we're going to do a couple of things. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab a layout inflator. The layout inflator is built into Android and allows us to inflate XML into view objects. Now the get layout inflator is a member of the activity class inside of Android. So we're going to get the inflator, and then we're going to tell the inflator to inflate a certain XML file. We're going to tell it to inflate the category row, tell it who its parents are, and then we're also going to say, does it need to attach to root? And we're going to say no there. Once we have our row, we're going to say it's a view. We can now do a few things with it. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to update the name of the label, then we're going to update the icon, and then update the description text to get our end result, and hoping that our app will look something similar to this for the home page. The first item we're going to get is the label. So if we go inside of category row and we look for ID label, we should see that inside of category row. So we look at the IDs, here's the icon, that's not it, here's the details, that's not it, there's the label. That's what we're going after at this point in time. Remember that the label is the bold white text on the screen. That's what we're trying to grab in the main activity inside of the adapter. So once we get that text view, we are now going to set the text. And we get that text view by calling something called row, which is the view object. We're saying, for this view, I would like you to find something inside of yourself by the name of label. And once it finds it, we cast it back to text view, and then we're just calling it label. And at that point in time, the text view object has a value, has a method called set text. Inside of there, we're going to get the list of category info objects. It has a method called get, and this returns the element at the specified location in the list. We're going to be using a position, which is the position of where we are at inside of our categories object. So get the position of where we're at inside of here. It could be the first, second, third, 10th, 20th, wherever we're at. And then on there we're going to say get category name, because get is going to return a category info object, and the category info has a getter on it, an accessor for a category name. Now this is inside of our category info object itself, so it's going to get the category name. Remember that this was all set up inside of the mock category repository. So we have the category info, we set up a new category info with the ID 1. Coder to developer is the name of the category. We're going to set the image resource, and then we're going to set the description of the category itself, and then we're going to add a bunch of videos here, and then finally add it to the list. Looking at the category info object again, here's how we set the category name, and we can scroll down and we can see that we have get category name, we have get description, we have a bunch of different accessors, and we also have some mutators such as setting the description, setting the image resource ID, all the way down the line. Now inside of our main activity, the next thing that we want to do is change the icon. We want to change it from the default TechPub camera icon to the icon that correlates to the category itself. So we're going to get an image view from the row. So what we're saying is inside of category row, we're going to find the icon, and this icon is this right here. So this image view is going to be this item right there inside of each row. And then what we want to do is, since we have an image view, we can set its image resource, which is a method on the image view class. So we can say set, and we have a bunch of different options here. We can say set image bitmap, set drawable, set level matrix, image resource, a whole bunch of different items. And what we're going to do is tell it to get the current category info again, but this time we're going to tell it to get its image resource ID. When we built the image resources back in the mock category repository, we said set image resource ID to a hard-coded image. Now remember back when I said that most of the time developing an application like this, you're not going to have your images located in your application, because each time you made a change or each time you added a new video or category to your website, such as TechPub does on every couple of weeks, add a new series, you have to build a new version of your application, include those images all the way down the line. In the end, what we'd like to have this app do is connect up to TechPub, get some information about which categories are available to watch. It'll download it to the app through the internet, and then at that point in time we would either store the image locally or stream it in through some type of resource. We could determine that at that time. However, we're just working to get the UI up and running, so we have a category which sets the local image resource ID to a hard-coded image inside of the drawable folder. Right now we have one called category coder to developer. If we look inside of the drawable, we'll see that we have one right here. Coder to developer equates to this image right here. Opening that up, and we see our coder to developer icon. Close this down, and then we'll go back to the main activity. So now we've set the icon, and finally we're going to update the description. Now the description that we're going to be updating is going to be this piece in each row. So it's another text view by the name of details line. After we get it, let's go ahead and set the description. And before we set the description, we actually get the description from the category itself, and we see if the description equals null, we're not able to get a description back from the category. Then what we want to do is just set it to an empty string here. Otherwise, we're just going to use a description. So we're using the ternary operator to do that. So it's basically saying if description is null, then use a blank string, otherwise use the description. And then after all this ceremony is done, we're going to say, all right, we've created this new row, now return this row. An important thing to note is this piece of code gets called for each category all the way down the line. So each time we have a new category, we're going to have the coders to developers, we will have the concepts, Android, Ajax, and it'll loop down the line, and all of this code here will get run each and every time. However, it's very fast, so there's not going to be a big problem here. We can open up our window here to see if we have any problems again. We just see that we have a warning that we're not using the intent package. Let's delete that import, get everything nice and clean. We'll minimize this again, and now what we can do is fire up this app. Go to Android application. We're going to see the Android app close. Now we're going to see it reopen, and now we have our data that has loaded directly from our mock repository with our hard-coded images, which we see here, and all of our values in this case. We can scroll. If we click on it, nothing happens. We could do the same thing we did before, which is showing the text to the user, or what we really want to do is fire off an intent to start the next activity, which is the category activity to view the list of videos that we have. And that's what we'll be doing in the next episode.